Hello, Dr. Gibson. This is a virtual walkthrough of my course that I've designed for my online learners in Lee Summit, Missouri. These are English 12 students. There's a few 504s for things like social anxiety, which an online class kind of meets naturally, and for things like ADHD or medical needs that are non-related. I do not have any IEPs in this class, so this class is a pretty on-level course. Typically, students who take English 12, English is not their passion or love. They're meeting a graduation requirement and not necessarily taking something that they're very interested in. And so buy-in is a huge part of what this class is about, is getting them to be engaged with the material so that they can complete the tasks they need to complete. So authentic assessment is one of our central focuses of this, is no matter what you're doing in your future from this, because I'll have range from students who are going to, four-year institutions that have pretty high GPAs and take English as an easy A, essentially, as they're taking other classes that are very difficult, all the way down to kids who really struggle with the reading and really are struggling to graduate and the content's extremely difficult for them. So it's a huge range of students. I have kids who are barely graduating, and then going off to, state schools and higher level achievers. So I started off by putting some resources here. This is kind of an update from probably the last video I shared. We're starting a research unit, and I wanted to get them links right in front of their face so that they could see it and get virtual help and different links that will help them in this process. And I wanted to be right there. So I made this the kind of post that will just stay at the top of their screen. The next thing I have is media resources. This is a media class. So their resources to things that we use regularly are right here at the top of their screen for them. Because this is the way the pandemic works, kids can opt into online English at any moment, and they can't necessarily go to the in-person class at any moment. They can always come into the online class, which is really difficult because online classes, when you're in the process and you don't have that communication where I can catch you and sit you down and be like, okay, here's how we do things here, and walk them through. And it's really asynchronous. So they're expected to do it on their own. So it's a really tough ask of kids who have really never been in online environments or are used to kind of having their hands held in a lot of ways, to be honest with you. So they come into the class and they don't know what's going on. So right at the top, I put this new to online English, and I was having 2 to 3 kids at it a week for a while, all starting at different places, and it was a lot. And so I made this special folder just for that circumstance, because that's going to continue to happen throughout the school year. And it tells them what to do. And then if I click here, I can see the exact things that are in this document. And when you open it, you can see that I have included the pages. I've got this is linked above too. I try to link things in several places so that wherever they're looking for it, they can find it. But it has all their online account information. The syllabus is here for them. That kind of tells them my schedule and then what they need to know for their online learning situation. And then the course video is here. And that's just for the new students to come in. And it's not intended to be everything related to the class. It's just intended, you're hitting the ground running. What do you need to know to get started today? And so that is what that folder is for. Below that, I have a section that I use as questions for the course. And this I use as basically students email me, and I try to answer them as much as possible, but sometimes you get one email or one question asked by 15 kids, and then you're answering the same question over and over again. So one of the things that I did is I linked into this questions for the course and just said, if you have a question that pertains to the class in general or a clarification I need to make, please add it here and I will answer those questions for you. This is used by a few students. It's hard for students to put themselves out there right now, especially in this new environment that they're not used to. It's hard for them to push themselves out there in front of the entire class, especially when they don't know each other. It's a very scary process. So they don't like to use it all that much, but I do make it available to them. And even though they don't use it as much as we did, like in the spring, my students used it a lot. They knew their class, they knew me, we had a familiarity. And so posting something online was not scary. But posting something for everyone to see in this environment is a little scary because you're not really sure who's there and you're not really sure how protected you're going to be when you ask a question. So it makes you a little bit vulnerable as a student. And so they don't use it as much in this newer environment as they did when they were already familiar with us. This is my unit 1, and after the first unit was over, I hid this to kind of get it out of our way. But these are each of the 8 weeks that we had to go through. And this 0 week has in it the weekly walkthrough, description of what this first half of the week was, and just a bunch of general information. There's a lot in this folder, and it's almost too cumbersome in a lot of ways, but it's all the information that they need. Again, log account information. Here, I made a video of how I expect them to annotate when I'm asking them to annotate, and then I had them annotate the syllabus to make sure that they looked at it, and then they had to submit that. The syllabus for their online class is available to them here. This is the how-to guide for digital annotations, which is a link to a document that has them walk through steps, a text set for them on how to work online. So we started off with reading how ways to make yourself successful in an online environment, and that was our first text set. And then how to complete a discussion board. I made a video to kind of show this. So there's a lot here because I'm trying to lay the groundwork for the expectations, and then tips for online learning, which is the first discussion board that we did. And I tried to make it very clear to them what they needed to have here. At the beginning, I posted a lot of things with explicit learning targets, and I understand that's best practice. And I understand that that is what I do in my classroom mostly, and I can incorporate that into the description. When we're learning at a distance, students found that very overwhelming and they didn't know what to do with it. And I work with a special education teacher in one of my other classes, and her advice was, it's too much for the students right now. It's too overwhelming for them to see that. They really just need to know the tasks that they need to take care of and get rid of the extra stuff. So I've changed and kind of started modeling and taken that out of there and kind of modeling expectations in our discussions and kind of explaining it to them verbally. Here's what I'm hoping you'll get out of this, rather than posting it here with just a little bit more text for them. Because to be honest, although it's not a world we want to say that we live in, that's just too much for students. It was too much for them at the beginning and being so overwhelmed. So this is our introductory week. And so I started off, you can see, tasks to get done and just kind of listing off what things were. And as the semester has gone on, I've gotten a little bit more into kind of making a little bit more visual. So if you look at the Unit 2, you can see that I've kind of started using it a little bit differently, a little bit more description, adding pictures. And so these are the kind of the adjustments I've been making going through this course, as well as going through the web design course, and kind of thinking about how I can incorporate some of the web page concepts and ideas into what I'm seeing here in my own class. And so that is, I've been trying to change it and think of a visual representation that might help them go through that, to help them kind of connect the ideas and just to make it look pretty, because people read things that look pretty. I mean, let's be real. So we have weekly walkthroughs. We have their grammar assignments. So I try to include everything. At this point, I've gotten better at using Schoology and trying to incorporate things as I've kind of got my feet under me as far as what we're doing here in the online environment as well. I want everything to be as few clicks as possible. So instead of having them click out to the bias definition, I just made it a thing and put it in here for them. And then, they have this reading activity with a discussion board here. Again, this is a video that I embedded within the page, so they don't have to go out. They can click on it and then go out to that page, because honestly, Schoology is very slow. They've had a hard time. I'm not sure if all the learning management systems have had this issue, but it's been evident that Schoology gets bogged down and it gets stuck quite a bit. And so sometimes playing things in Schoology is actually really difficult. So I try to make sure they have a way to be able to see it outside of that as well. Again, more videos. And then they weren't watching the videos. I hate the idea of I have to hold them accountable for a behavioral expectation. But if they don't watch the video and have that behavior, then they're not going to be able to do the work. And so we put quizzes in that I wouldn't normally put in, but these are multiple choice quizzes. And it's basically to make sure they watch the video. I wish I could do like your class and just let them take it and see how they did. And for the did you get it? The love of learning, but that's not how it works in senior classes. And just saying it's a required part of the class doesn't work. If it's not worth points, it's not required. So they have to have points, and it has to be a meaningful amount of points for them to be able to get it done. So then I have them do an article of the week and have them submit it here. Articles of the week look like this. This is where I'm asking them to go and read the news and to complete one assignment that has multiple learning targets that I'm asking them to kind of cover within our unit. So this is a weekly assessment that I have them do. We start off the first half of the semester with just one, just to kind of get their feet wet, to get them learning about the target and the pattern of the class. Now they do two, and they compare bias, and they're supposed to find them from different political spectrums. So I give them resources to find that and to make sure they're picking things from different areas of the perspective. But they keep the citation information locked in here, summarize the article. There's the link to the bias chart, and so they can compare where the article falls into place. They discuss the bias. A lot of them are saying, it's just an opinion article, there's no bias. And so it's like, okay, we're missing something here. So we've had to do some reteaching about opinion articles, and that actually is exactly what it is a biased piece of writing. So they kind of give them some description here, which I go over in class when I speak with them, because we do some virtual classes as well. And then they have that here to kind of remind them. And then connections, because this is going to be part of their research that's upcoming. And so I want them to start connecting these articles with each other if they're picking similar topics, or connecting the sources with each other. Like, oh, this source also had, this other article on this other topic, but really when you think about it, these are both part of the same bigger thing, and a larger message that source is trying to push out. And then questions and curiosities. And so this is really related to their research, like, what's your next step? What questions do you still have after reading this article? Because like I said, this is pushing towards their research assignment at the end of this semester. And so I want them to be able to make sure that they can articulate this clearly. So that's the article of the week. And this is essentially the research that they use to complete the summative assignment. And the summative assignment is one that we are just finishing up the process. We had the idea in place, but the specific details related to it, just things were moving so quickly, we didn't have quite the chance to get that done as well, as quickly as we wanted. So I made a video describing the summative expectations, and then had them create a quiz over it to make sure that they knew what those expectations are, and to make sure they watched the video. Then there's a document here that we've embedded that has their due dates for the end of the semester related to them, and the submission expectations, because Schoology is great. It has some things and it does embed things in, but they don't work as well when they're embedded. For example, Turnitin.com, I can create multiple assignments for something in Turnitin.com, but if I create it through the embedded tool in Schoology, then it's just the one assignment, and I can't create revision assignments and things like that. And so I don't use that embedded tool, because the embedded tool doesn't work as good as the actual place that I'm going to. So I don't use that for that particular situation. So the summative is really asking them to take a topic, and I can show you here in this. So the assessment is, you're going to take a topic and you are going to compare two perspectives related to that topic. And that topic has to be something covered in media today, because this is media and information literacy, media literacy course. And so you want to talk about two major influences related to this topic, two organizations, named groups, even hashtags, just two different ideas floating around about it. And then you need to compare those two topics. And then you need to talk about misconceptions created by the media. And so this is the mis and disinformation, or the fake news that gets swirling around topics. So the buy-in for them is they get to pick whatever they want, as long as they can find current information in media today related to that topic. That's the parameter of their topic selection. The next thing that they need to make sure that they do is that they can find different perspectives related to that topic. So our articles of the week, I tell them at the very beginning. So this this summative quiz and video was the first thing we did at the beginning of this unit, so they knew where they were going in the unit. Then after they did that, they were able to use their articles of the week to start comparing those perspectives throughout the 4 weeks leading into when we started this project. So that gives them potentially almost all of their research that they might need to have to create this assignment. This assignment leads into our capstone project, which happens next semester. And that project asks them to create a media campaign related to a topic. And so they're going to create an infographic using this paper as their foundation that lays out the different perspectives of the topic itself. And so that's their first assignment when it comes to their media campaign next semester. So this is also still a kind of a formative assessment and a larger piece, even though it's a summative for the unit we're going over now. So everything that we do in this class is built and building towards that final capstone project. The steps along the way for this project: research, outline, rough draft, peer revisions, and then final papers submitted. And this is a week before the end, because the situation that we're working in the public schools, we don't necessarily have to do this, but the senior teachers, we really want our kids to graduate. This is a really rough year to be a senior and a really rough way to go out as far as learning is concerned, and such a flip on what they're used to doing, that we want to make sure we've given them every opportunity to graduate and to get the credit they need. So we're going to give them a 0 week where they can basically turn in everything at the last week, which is not necessarily what we typically would do in this situation. But at the same time, we know that these students that we teach are pretty, they're stressed and this is hard. And so we're giving them as much benefit of the doubt as we can and giving them a week to turn in work. They have to get the summative in before they can turn in the work that is outstanding, because the summative is worth 60% of the grade in the class, and the daily work is worth 40% of the grade in the class. So that means that even if they miss an assignment and they get the summative in, they'll probably be okay. If they don't get the summatives done, then they won't be okay. So about half of each quarter is related directly to work that's building to that summative, as are most of the way we do the formatives. Everything of those are also leading towards that. So we have the assignments laid out here. And what I've started doing with these assignments, that I can give you an example, like they have to create a project in Noodle Tools. So inside this assignment, rather than linking outside of the assignment, this is one of the changes I've made through the process, is I've noticed that they're like, where's the video that this quiz is over? It's like, oh, okay, when I make the assignment, I can embed the video in the assignment. So the video is there along with the assignment to have them do it. So they don't even have to click outside the assignment anymore. And I'm going to continue to do that, because I'm finding that even though I lay the class out and then assignments to go in order, that they click on what the assignment is and where it's due, and they don't necessarily go into the folders to complete that. So while that's not the best way to do it, if I know that's what they're doing and I want to save myself from answering 5 different questions about it for every assignment, which adds up, I just am trying to embed everything in one place to just make it as simple as possible for them to be able to get the work done. So I've linked directions here, links to, they have to go and click this link and make a copy of it and add it to their account. So that link is there, directions where to find it, project inbox names, because they have to enter that in their Noodle Tools to be able to give me permission to see their work. So all of that is listed here, and the directions are here. So I anticipate some questions, because I have words that they need to read, and sometimes they don't read the words. They have directions that are, they have to go through and glance at and look at. There's a video that they actually have to watch to see how it works. They could do the directions or the video. They don't necessarily need to do both, but I put it in both mediums to be able to kind of meet kids where they're at, whichever way helps them better. Or sometimes we need both ways to be able to get a process done. So that's what I've been doing through most of these. The summative essay has 2 things. So here is the essay itself. And then the way the rubric works is I don't want them to end up with, if they get, if it's a 4-point scale and they get 3s all the way down, I see that as a B, not as a C, 75%. So I've set it up as a raw score, which is the rubric scale, and then a percentage scale, which they'll they'll have that information as to what they translate to. So I ask them in this to create and copy and paste their outline and give them directions, because there's an extra step here. And then in here, there is a rubric that matches the expectations that we laid out for them in the assignment itself. So the topic needs to have context, key individuals. So they need to name it, give context, key individuals. Side 1, who are the key individuals? What do they stand to gain or lose? What's their bias? And so they establish the side and give this information for side 1 and side 2. And then I make sure that they have research for each side that meets that. These will be more specifically laid out as we move through the project. But I wanted to make sure that they knew that they had kind of a checklist to go after. And then research for side 1, mis and disinformation, and then their conclusion. And this is it's really a reflective conclusion. So I'm asking them to talk about the steps that they took, why they selected those sources, what key research lessons they used to gain from this activity. Because really this process is not so much about learning about the topic as much as it is about them being aware of how they're using media to balance their sides. And so we talk about that all along, is that, you can pick any topic because the topic is not what you're learning about. The process of learning about media is what you're learning about. And so we have those conversations, and I try to make them think about this as reflectively as possible in little bits along the way. I use reflections more often in my in-person class because of it's very difficult. We're trying to keep the amount of work feeling manageable for them right now, because they've got 7 classes working in a way that they're not used to working. But there's usually a lot more reflection within the course. Tone, grammar, and mechanics, and then research and works cited. So that is the expectation. And again, these are seniors. They've had all of this stuff before, but I do provide individual support through individual conferences and things like that, because I do have some students who really need help with how to create a works cited per se, or how to embed a quote correctly, even though I do some explicit instruction and then support it with the no red ink activities, which help with that. It's still something that even as an adult researcher, there's some nuance to some of those things that you just need help with. And so that's what I tell them, is I don't expect perfection. I expect you to make it an honest effort to do it the right way, and to ask questions when you're not sure what the right way is. And I try to honor their question asking by telling them their questions are smart and that they're working in a really good way. Because if you feel like you're dumb for asking a question, you won't ask questions. So anyway, that's the course kind of as an overview. I've tried to talk a little bit about integration of technologies. Schoology does integrate stuff. I've tried to use a lot of the embedding processes to help save, but like I said, it does slow down pretty quickly. There are certain different tools that I can integrate. So like my PowerSchool gradebook integrates with this, but the sync is terrible. So I'm doing as much work to resync it all the time as it probably would be just to enter the grades twice. These are other different tools that I can use. The conferences is something we can use instead of Google Zoom. Or I'm sorry, not Google Zoom, Google Meet, but Google Meet just works way better. So we use that. So, Schoology is okay. It has some things that are great, but it's not my favorite. I don't feel like it's as integrated as even the Google tools are. Turnitin.com, like I said, works, but Turnitin.com itself works better. So I use that. Kami is just something that we've added, and I haven't started playing with that yet. But I do like Kami a lot. I think that's great. So as far as annotations go for next semester in my sophomore class, it's likely that I'll switch to something like that. But I would prefer just to do that by hand, because the students would prefer that, and we all could use this break from our screen. So, there's a lot of things that is just, depends on the particular process, but I can definitely get resources out to them this way. And I can definitely get them what they need in their hands so that they can do the work, which is the first priority above anything else. As far as accessibility is concerned, I have gone back and forth with playing with font colors and things like that between gray and black. The blue works really well. I try to highlight things to connect ideas. So I try to highlight everything in blue that's kind of related to one thing. If they don't want to read the whole paragraph, if they read just the blue, they'll have enough kind of flashes in there of information that they'll get the gist, the due date, the big idea of that particular statement. I like to In the beginning of the year, I made sure that my students were able to download Rewrite here, which is a great tool that gives a lot of accessibility tools to students. Oops, it's going to turn on for me here. Sorry. I don't know why it's going through that. So we use this quite a bit here, and I have a couple of students who are hard of hearing, which the online environment actually works better for them because they can manage these tools and they can see my face, whereas in the masks they couldn't. I did do the Creative Commons license and send that to you. So sorry for the long video. I just wanted to make sure you got to see everything that you wanted to see. My grade setup, I think I mentioned this, is 60-40. So the summatives are the main meat, but you can't really pass really unless you do kind of both things, right? And so you really are going to need the grades from the formatives to get to the assessment. And if you do the assessment or the final assessment, you're going to have done the regular one. So it's kind of integrated, but that way that final product, if you miss a couple of assignments, you're not going to fail the class because your summative assessment is worth most of the points. And if the summative assessment is worth that much, then you've really seen what I need to see. So you can pass the class doing that. The only way to do really well, though, is to make sure you've done it all, but they work together in such a way that my students really kind of appreciate that because they feel like everything fits together. I've gotten pretty good feedback on the way that that's structured for them because they see how things connect. So anyways, if I missed anything or you need any other information, please don't hesitate to ask. And I really appreciate you taking the time to let me do this video again. So thanks.